So most people are really surprised that the price of Bitcoin has not been pumping. But today we might have found out the reason why Bitcoin is still stuck at $120,000 per coin, despite all of the billionaires, nation states, hedge funds, all buying Bitcoin. And guess what? We're not actually talking about paper Bitcoin today. We have a new investigation that is alleging that America, a country we used to think was the biggest holder of Bitcoin, actually holds 85% less Bitcoin than what we have publicly thought. I know it sounds crazy, but today we have a little bit of a rabbit hole to dive into. Most people think that America's holding about 210,000 coins, but you guys can see what Senator Cynthia Lummis just tweeted earlier today. She openly said, wait on a minute, I'm alarmed by reports that the US has sold off 80% of its Bitcoin reserves, leaving just 29,000 Bitcoin. We've got a little bit of a deep rabbit hole to dive into today, and of course I'm joined by Sophie to expose what is actually happening with America's reserves of Bitcoin. Sophie, I want to pass it off to you. What are your first impressions? What were your first thoughts after we started diving down this new investigation this morning?
I mean, to be honest, it kind of started to put all of the pieces together in my head, right? We've been saying for a long time, are these institutions that are claiming to have ETFs even, telling the truth about how much Bitcoin they have? And it never occurred to me that our own government, who lies to us all the time, would actually be the culprit of that very thing. So it's not surprising to me at all, but it is a little bit alarming. It actually begs more questions than answers. And so now I'm more curious. I want to go further down this rabbit hole. Who sold the Bitcoin? Did we really sell the Bitcoin? Is that Bitcoin in the custody of other institutions? Are we going to actually buy more Bitcoin to catch up with China now?
Mhm.
That is the bigger question. And those are this is just like the tip of the iceberg. And we want to give credit to Lola Leeds for spearheading this investigation. She did an absolutely phenomenal job putting in the proof of work, getting the FOIA request. I think that, this is like so patriotic. I think because of her, this administration may be pushed to the edge in saying that, that thing that we said before where we weren't going to buy new Bitcoin, I think we're going to have to walk that back. And I think we're going to actually have to buy massive amounts of Bitcoin.
Well, that is actually, this is the thing that I think is getting lost right now in this discussion. Again, this new investigation, it's a little bit of a bombshell. It's huge. We're going to break it all down for you guys. But if the worst case scenario is true, again, we still don't know exactly what is true. All we do know is that the US Marshals is only holding something like 27,000 coins. If we assume that America has sold about 170,000 coins, well, then we need to kind of like step back and think for a minute, hang on a minute, this is bullish for two reasons. One, the price is still at $120,000 a coin, despite an enormous amount of selling. And two, like you just said, Soph, America was probably going to want to buy more Bitcoin than China. And if we're stuck with only 29,000 odd coins, do we really think that Donald Trump isn't going to want to buy another 150 or 200,000 coins? I think those are some questions we're going to explore today. But you mentioned it. You mentioned the report done by L0la. Let's dive into it and let's take a little bit of a look at what she found. So this is a little bit of an investigation. And the summary is this. You can see the extensive research she went to. Have a look at all of these pages and pages and pages of reports that she was able to dig up. And she came to this conclusion. The full list of Bitcoin holdings is 28,000 Bitcoin. So today that's at about $3.44 billion, the current price of Bitcoin. She said that the US Marshal Service liquidates assets in public auctions. So unless they announce the sale, this list should be accurate. So again, if they're going to sell anything, they have to do it publicly. And Lola says, if you want to pay another $10,000, I can Google that. So what is Lola referring to? Well, David Bailey actually put a bounty out there. He wanted to know how much Bitcoin America actually held. And it was Lola who did all of the investigations, all of the research, and she was the one who came up with this pretty shocking report that right now is getting circulated everywhere, all over Twitter. What are your thoughts on this tweet here, Soph, coming from Cynthia Lummis?
I think she's jumping the gun maybe a little bit. I mean, I hope that she's jumping the gun because if she's saying that the US actually sold off 80% of the Bitcoin, I mean, yikes. That's like your grandparents auctioning off your inheritance. Like, I'm going to be super pissed, grandma. That's just going to like be not great news for the US. And I love what somebody put here, minimalism, I don't know. Said, can we just start printing and buying already for the love of God? Seriously, can we just run that money printer? If we're doing it to fund wars and fund all of these corrupt politicians, like, why can't we just use it to buy the most scarce asset and start backing our economy with the hardest asset that the world has ever known? It doesn't really make sense. Um,
It's only a matter of time before that happens. Like, we all know what the end game here is. Like, if America really is only sitting on 27,000 Bitcoin, as we might dive into a little bit more in a second, like, they're going to have to, they're going to have to buy more Bitcoin. It's kind of, it's the ultimate conclusion. And we haven't finished talking about this American story yet. But again, every country who dumps Bitcoin or sells Bitcoin too soon, they always get shown a pretty valuable lesson, a hurtful lesson. We can see Germany dumping $2.8 billion of Bitcoin earlier in the year. What happened to them? Well, they lost out on hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of money because they sold Bitcoin too soon. We can see here the German government lost $3.1 billion of profit after selling Bitcoin at $54,000 a coin. Again, today, let's take a right? That's
damn,
crazy.
I thought it was at the prophetic 58,000. I was even willing to give them a little closer to 60,000, but 54 wrecked.
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 Absolutely wrecked. And again, today we're at about $118,000 a coin. And when you zoom out, you can really see how, let's say, painful that sale from the German government recently must be beginning to kind of appear. Because again, $3 billion, that's not an inconsequential amount of money. That is a ton of money. When you kind of zoom out, you can kind of see they were kind of the sacrifice for that next leg up that we saw in Bitcoin. They kind of paper handed the bottom here at what, $58,000 a coin. It doesn't matter what price they sold, but it was the bottom and we moved up much higher afterwards. Again, has America just made that same sacrifice? If they have, again, we don't know, but if they have gone out there and sold 170,000 Bitcoin, I think they're going to be taught a very painful lesson when Bitcoin continues to do what Bitcoin does, and that is move up and to the right forever.
I mean, I'm not saying that they did it for malicious reasons, but it can't be for good reasons, right? I mean, we're learning about so much corruption in government right now. We're about to potentially go to war with Iran, if we're not already at war with them. I mean, there's so many things happening around the world that, who's to know why they moved this Bitcoin. It makes, again, it leaves more questions than answers up in the air, and I want netizens to dig even further. I want Bitcoiners to dig even further. What did they do with our country's corn? And like, there is kind of like a controversy, like it's not really ours. We didn't buy it. It was seized. It was forfeited. And that is definitely like a controversy. It's a conversation that is totally valid, and I think that we should personally be buying it more. But the point is, it's not in our reserve anymore, and that's something that people should be absolutely concerned about.
Absolutely. So let's kind of break down this report in a little bit more detail. We can see here US Marshals Service holds just 28,000 Bitcoin, far less than expected. Is that the freedom for, what is that one, Sophie? Is that the freedom for information, or I don't know what an
Yes,
FO.
Freedom of Information Act. So, for those of our listeners who are not American, this is a request that any American can put into our government so that you get full quote unquote transparency from the US government.
Love that.
Quote
Thank you.
unquote.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
well, that's
Uh,
right. And that's
Sometimes that request might be denied, but sometimes you get lucky, and Lola Leeds again did a really, really great job.
Yeah, her report absolutely crushed it. We can see it's actually been confirmed by multiple people. So we can see somebody else on Twitter, an on-chain analyst, Sani XP, clarifies that the US government, this person's claiming that the US government controls the UTXOs for 200,000 Bitcoin, but the 29,000 Bitcoin reported by the US Marshals are only forfeited coins, excluding confiscated Bitcoin held by agencies like the FBI and the IRS. So again, this is a little bit of the caveat to the confusion that we're seeing right now on Twitter. Lola, the person who ran the report, she kind of wrote this summary tweet that I want to kind of break down here. She says, all right, guys, since we now all have our panties in a jumble over the US government selling their Bitcoin, I'd like to alert you to the fact that there is a difference between seized assets and forfeited assets. At the very bottom of this tweet, she says, so this doesn't mean that the US government has sold any Bitcoin. It just means that whatever these US Treasury sites estimate is likely wrong, as they don't seem to differentiate between seized and forfeited Bitcoin.
And
So
actually, that makes me wonder, uh, are we the only ones? Is China lying as well? What other countries are lying about how much Bitcoin they have or have bought or not bought? Um, Kind of makes you wonder.
that is a very interesting rabbit hole, because again, we all know that governments and countries do publicly announce how much Bitcoin they hold. We can see America used to, well, who knows, they could still hold 207,000 Bitcoin. This is the number that is very publicly available. And for some time, we've known that China is the number two in this kind of two dog race, two horse race, so to say. America and China is supposed to be the number one and two by a long margin. Then you kind of see a big drop off to the UK with 61,000 Bitcoin. And then, of course, the Ukraine's got 46,000 Bitcoin. There's some rabbit holes attached to that number. But again, it does make you ask the question, what can we actually trust publicly? Like, who actually knows what's happening? What I do think is interesting, you kind of brought this up before we went live, Sophie. El Salvador does actually publish its addresses of the Bitcoin that they hold publicly, which is, again, very different. Maybe this is the standard for the future. Governments will publicly put out the addresses that they hold and announce how much Bitcoin they've hold. Right now, El Salvador is supposed to be holding 6,200 coins. And as we can see, they've been buying a Bitcoin a day for some time now. And they are sitting on a ton of profit. I believe that's that green number there, $739 million worth of profit for El Salvador. And again, this is a tiny country. For them to be sitting on $700 million of profit just from their Bitcoin holdings, this is kind of a huge deal when we really start to think about it. And
Yeah,
again,
and you can see the proof in their country. You can see the proof of funds literally manifesting themselves in how the country has grown. They went from being the most dangerous country in America, in like the Americas, to being one of the safest. So, like, I think that it's not a coincidence. People will say, like, it's no, it's because he was authoritative. It's because whatever. No, it's also because you fixed your money. And so
Mhm.
imagine if the US, had all of the Bitcoin that they said it did, like how much better of a country we would be. We would have better infrastructure, better schools, better healthcare. I feel like so many of the things that these politicians run on, they don't realize how it will be fixed if you fix the money. But then again, if you fix the money, if you start fixing too many things, then what do you need the politicians for? And that's kind of like the final end of the question here, right?
There you go. That's the rabbit hole that most politicians don't want to be faced with. If you do fix too many things, all of a sudden there's no problems for you to highlight in the mainstream media, political campaigns that we do see every 4 years. I think it's a great point you've made, Sophie. El Salvador has been absolutely transformed. It's actually safer than America in 2023, and you can see how violently that blue line just dropped. That is El Salvador's homicide rates per 100,000 people. That cratered. El Salvador was safer than America in 2023. And yeah, I also don't think it's a coincidence. You take the theft out of money, you also take the theft off the streets and you clean up the streets, and all of a sudden you can radically transform a country. It's obviously, this is why we Bitcoin. We Bitcoin because it is going to potentially create a much nicer world, a safer world, and a world that I think is just better for everybody on the planet. This is, again, the big thing that I think gets lost in the debate of, Bitcoin versus real estate. We're living in this massive real estate bubble. It's enabled not only governments, but the household to take on so much debt over the past 30, 40, 50 years as interest rates have been lowered every recession. But again, like, there's negative consequences of blowing up this real estate bubble. All of a sudden, the everyday person can't afford to buy a home. My generation, we're screwed. We can't buy a home. It's completely different. It's completely unaffordable. In Sydney, the average home costs 21 times the average person's income. It's insane. But of course, if Bitcoin becomes the next big asset that people store their value in, all of a sudden this will hypothetically make real estate more affordable if we start draining some of that monetary premium out of the real estate market and putting it into Bitcoin. Again, Bitcoin is going to create a better future, and hey, we're just here for that. It's pretty exciting along the way.
Yeah, I just wanna see more answers. This is crazy. And also I wanna know why, who started that? Like, who claimed that the US was holding 200,000 Bitcoin in the first place?
Mm.
And why wouldn't other, if it is being held by the FBI, if it is being held by the DEA, if it is being held by like all of these other government entities, why wouldn't they just come out and be like, no, actually, like, here's our wallet? And it's because these governments aren't used to working in transparency. They're the authority over all of us, but they're not used to working in this new transparent world. Even though we've had the internet for over like 30 years now, they still don't get it. They still think that they can get away with lying to people, and the reality is that is very quickly going away thanks to the internet first, and Bitcoin second.
Yeah, I mean, the faster we see the number go up that we're right now pretty blessed with, the faster I think, to your point, Sophie, this is going to force transparency on governments. On a Bitcoin standard, I think it's going to be much more difficult to steal from your citizens. It's going to be much more difficult to send money all around the world and fund all sorts of different campaigns that probably the taxpayers are not a fan of their tax paying dollars going toward and funding. And I think hopefully this whole event surrounding the US government, which again is fresh, it's only really emerged in the past few hours. We don't have all of the answers yet, but it is a story that I think kind of shines that light on the fact that Bitcoin is going to force these governments to be transparent. And I think in the not too distant future, we're going to be living in a world where everybody's looking around at each other and they're like, oh, hang on a minute. we are now going to have to be forced to be transparent, and that is all because of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is doing and how quickly the amount of Bitcoin available for sale is kind of cratering and falling off a rock. Because again, something we've got to entertain here, Soph, is all right, America might only hold 27,000 Bitcoin. Again, we don't know yet. It's still early days. We're going to see what's happening. We don't have confirmation. I think it's concerning that we have senators openly saying, look, this is just leaving us with 29,000 Bitcoin. What happened to the other 85%? But if that Bitcoin is gone, and if America does not hold Bitcoin, and if countries like even Kazakhstan is talking about creating national reserves in Bitcoin, what's going to have to happen? Well, America's going to have to start bidding in the open market for Bitcoin. They've already announced that they want to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And if they are sitting on as few Bitcoin as we might have uncovered today, then they're going to have to start bidding on the exchanges for Bitcoin. And we do know that there's only 2.4 million Bitcoin on the exchanges today. This number is dropping like a rock. There's about 80,000 coins leaving the exchanges nearly every month at this stage. And again, we also know that the Bitcoin OTC desks are also seeing a little bit of a supply crisis as well right now. I believe the last time we checked in on this number, there was only about 150,000 Bitcoin on the OTC desks, meaning that if America wants to actually buy more Bitcoin than China, that means that they would nearly clear the entire OTC desks of all of the supply that they hold. Because again, there's only about 156,000 Bitcoin on the OTC desks available for sale. So again, we're going to talk about this more a little bit later on in the show, Sophie. I don't want to give away too much of the secret sauce and all of the bullishness just yet for all of you guys tuning in live. But I just think the takeaway from this story, despite it being young, despite it being early, despite it being fresh, I think it's bullish either way you look at it. That's my take, Soph.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent take, Luke. Okay, so before we move on to the numbers, I want to give a special thanks to our lead sponsor, bitcoinwell.com.
It's Nico.
Wait, sorry. First time doing this, I'm pressing the button still. But anyway, we want to thank our sponsor, bitcoinwell.com. Bitcoinwell is the only exchange where you can buy your Bitcoin and it goes straight to your hardware wallet. Whenever my friends and family ask me, hey, like, where can I buy some Bitcoin? I always tell them about Bitcoin Well, because it makes you take self-custody. It doesn't, you're never going to lose your Bitcoin. You're never going to get hacked and be like, oh no, like, what did I do with my generational wealth? You're always going to have it in cold storage. And that is why I love bitcoinwell.com. So make sure to go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up today. It only takes 2 to 4 minutes. Let's get into the numbers.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, use our code simply to get 15% off of the stamp seed plates. You definitely don't want to store your generational wealth on paper or anything else. Definitely don't want to take a picture of it either. You know that like your boomer parents are probably going to do that. You want to get them something that will last forever. So scan the QR code and get your stamp seed today.
You have no idea how many of my friends just intuitively go to literally taking a screenshot of their Bitcoin 12 or 24 words. Guys, please do
That's
not
so
do that.
bad.
It's terrible. Think about what happens. What happens if your Google Drive or your Google Cloud gets hacked one day? Or your Bitcoin is gonzo. It's gone. Again, so many people make that mistake. I'm shocked at how many people do. So again, promo code simply stamp seed. Check them out. Something that we all need to check out, I think, is Clark Moody's dashboard. Let's check it out. Let's run through the numbers today. We're at 118,820 cuck bucks. You're going to get $1 for 842 sats. This is my favorite number on the entire dashboard. Bitcoin market capitalization is $2.36 trillion. We are today 3.5% away from our all-time high price of 123,000 coins. I think we're super close. Again, this is one of my favorite numbers. 94.73% of all of the Bitcoin has already been mined today. That means there is only 5.27%, if my quick maths is correct, left of the entire 21 million Bitcoin supply left to be mined, and that's going to be coming out over the next 115 years. So we always talk about like this supply shock and how Bitcoin is so scarce, but I think most people just don't understand just how scarce Bitcoin is, because when you crunch the numbers, it's kind of crazy how much of the Bitcoin supply has already been mined. We're pretty much again at 95%. I'll show you guys. You guys love the dashboard, but I'm sure you love a chart even more. In the gold, this is looking at the Bitcoin supply, and you can see right now we are approaching an asymptote of 21 million coins. We're about here on the chart, 2025. 95% of the supply is gone, and have a look at the inflation rate. That's in the red. You can see Bitcoin's inflation rate stair-stepping down every 4 years. Bitcoin's inflation rate, it's approaching zero. It is perfect money. It is ideal money, as John Nash has been talking about and presenting about and writing about since the 1990s. We won't get into the John Nash rabbit hole just yet, but I think, again, Bitcoin, we are getting more and more scarce by the day. I think some people think we're exaggerating when we say how little Bitcoin there is left, but hey, 5.27% of 21 million coins left to be mined. I don't think anyone's bullish enough, so that's just my thoughts.
I'm convinced. Look, I think that the governments and big institutions, their next psyop is going to be getting people to sell them their Bitcoin. And you don't want to do it. Don't do it. They're going to not be able to physically be able to buy more Bitcoin. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, "Hey, you sell us your Bitcoin. If you sell us your Bitcoin, we won't charge you that capital gains tax. If you sell us your Bitcoin, we will, give you X, Y, and Z. We'll promise you the moon and the stars," because somebody has to understand this, right? At some point. It's not like, a complicated logic here. If you have a scarce asset that is completely finite, it's only going to gain more value over time. And so as soon as that starts clicking for people, as soon as it starts clocking, as Justin Bieber said the other day, then their incentives are going to be to take your Bitcoin. So you should be very mindful of that.
Absolutely, it is. That's also a great point, and this kind of brings up a little rabbit hole that I mentioned earlier on in the show. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were ordered to consider crypto. Again, forget the dirty word. Let's focus on the real crypto asset. That's Bitcoin. And they were forced to consider Bitcoin as an asset when buying mortgages. Now, again, when you look at this news on the face surface of things, right, this is incredibly bullish, right? Oh, I can buy a home with my Bitcoin. But again, what I think got lost in this announcement that came out recently was that to get a mortgage with your Bitcoin, you had to put your Bitcoin on a centralized exchange. And again, that just kind of goes to your point, Sophie. They're going to dangle that carrot in front of you guys. And what they're going to do is, I think they're going to come after the Bitcoin. We can see here, this is another website breaking down how the FHFA ordered Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two largest mortgage issuers in America, mind you, to literally start accepting Bitcoin. Now, if we scroll down here, have a look at this. This is the little bit of information that I think gets lost in the bullish headline.
Wait. Do they have to accept Bitcoin as payments, or do they have to consider it as part of your assets now when they're giving you a loan?
Ooh.
Because
Ooh.
because if they have to consider it now, I mean, you have no idea how many people our age are trying to buy a house or even just getting a car loan. I mean, when I tried to get a car loan once, it was impossible. I got denied, and I have great
Mm.
credit score, and it was because they didn't consider Bitcoin as part of our assets. And so it's, if they are ordered to have to start considering that, that is a major win for a lot of people our age who are just trying to get by, who are just trying to buy a home, who are just trying to like become people, right? Like they always blame millennials, you guys got to grow up and like pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But it's like, how can
Mm.
we? Like the system is designed to be completely against us. And so this is a step forward in making that system be more malleable towards people our age.
Exactly. That is a great point. I'm going to dive into that rabbit hole in a minute of like there's a narrative in Australia, Soph. A lot of people think that the millennials just complain for the sake of complaining. Like the millennials are just complaining that housing is unaffordable because we're spending all of our money on avocado on toast. And I think you opened up an interesting point there. It's more the cost of living. We'll get there in a moment, but this is the breakdown here. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were ordered to prepare a proposal for consideration of crypto as an asset for reserves when they assess risks in single-family home loans. So we can see that William Bolt has instructed the agencies that their mortgage risk assessments should not require cryptocurrency assets to be converted into US dollars, but here's the kicker. Only crypto assets that can be evidenced and stored on a US regulated centralized exchange are subject to all applicable laws. So it is, by the looks of things, is this for the down payment? You can use the Bitcoin for the down payment for the loan. That's what I kind of got from reading that little article.
I wonder if there's tax implications for that. Somebody's like, you haven't done any research on this. I haven't done any research on this. I admit. But I did read this headline and a couple of tweets here and there. But that, like, if you can use Bitcoin to put the down payment, I mean, that would be great as long as there's no tax implications for it. Um,
I think my read into it is, and again, I've done probably about this much research into it, not a whole lot, but I think my read of it is you don't have to sell the Bitcoin by the looks of things, but you do have to put it on a centralized Bitcoin exchange, which again, while we're watching the number of Bitcoin on exchanges look like this, it's evaporating and dropping like a rock. That's kind of just where I pop my kind of tinfoil hat on and I start kind of scratching my head and I start thinking, really, why do they want to put my Bitcoin on the exchange when the number of Bitcoin on exchange?
Because they want your Bitcoin.
There you go. Everybody, everybody wants our Bitcoin. And again, I think I mentioned this a moment ago as well. Like, there's this narrative that millennials are just lazy and, we should pull our finger out of the wazoo and actually start working. But again, if you actually have a look at the price of houses over the past 40 years, it's pretty clear that there is a very clear divergence between the average income and the average cost of a home. So the average cost of a home is on this blue line, and the average income's at the bottom, the orange line. We could see back in 1985, the average home used to cost 3.6x the average income. So it looks as if the average home was about $100,000, which means the average income was probably about $30,000. Today, that gap has absolutely widened. We're now at 5.3x. So the average home costs 5 times the average person's income, which is just kind of insane when you think about it. And I think this is also a very generous look at the numbers and the statistics. I ran the numbers in a video recently. LA was something like 8 times the average person's income. That's what the average house costs. And in my home country, Melbourne, one of the capital cities, that has like a 16x. So the average house is 16 times the average income. And in Sydney, it's 21x. So the average home's like 2.1 million, and the average income's like around 100,000 Australian cuck bucks. So again, I think it's pretty clear the world is just getting more and more expensive, and I think Bitcoin is the only solution. And as we're going to dive into in a moment, Sophie, we saw a really interesting debate between a famous short seller, Jim Chanos, and a Bitcoiner, Pierre Richard. And it looks as if even GROK, so AI, is starting to come to the realization that Bitcoin is also the only answer. We're going to get there in a moment. I don't want to give too much away too soon, Sophie. I want your final thoughts on this kind of idea of housing affordability before we move on.
I mean, I see this as the government making amends for printing all of that money in 2020, 2021. If you go back to your chart, you'll see like there's just like this steep incline right when COVID happened. And it's because they printed all of that money, the price of homes just like doubled. And so it made it completely unfeasible for anybody to like really afford a home. And this is the first time that people who, likely younger people now actually have a fighting chance to be able to afford a home again. And I think that the more institutions dip their feet into Bitcoin and see the results over 4 to 8 years, the more they're going to be shifting over their business models. I mean, look at all of these Bitcoin strategic reserve companies that are coming out of the woodwork. I mean, Strategy at this point, I like saw someone tweet this, that Strategy actually holds way more Bitcoin than the United States government at this point. So as soon as more institutions start seeing this, that effect is going to trickle down to retail. And when it trickles down to retail, it trickles down to people like you and me. You're going to see these companies start making pensions for people in Bitcoin. You're going to see people getting paid their salary in Bitcoin. And then that's going to allow electric companies and water companies, utilities to accept Bitcoin, and small local governments to accept Bitcoin, even, political campaigns to accept Bitcoin. And it just kind of like trickles down. So this is a very exciting step in hyper Bitcoinization. And I can't wait to see how much further it goes.
It's going up and to the right forever, Sophie.
Yes.
Forever. Which even it looks as if the artificial intelligence is coming to that same realization that Bitcoin is going up and to the right forever. I think this is a great comment. Everyone stack Bitcoin and be rich. It is very simple. I think it's that simple.
Yes.
All right, before we dive into that rabbit hole and that recent debate from the short sellers, I think this is a topic hot on everyone's mind because obviously it was the short sellers getting burned that triggered the Bitcoin melt up from about $110,000 to $123,000. I think we're going to talk about that more in the culture in a moment, Sophie.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, let's move on to the news.
Let's do the news.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
There is no second best when it comes to Bitcoin storage. I think it's Cold Card. There is no second best. What is it? Use promo code SIMPLY for 5% off.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I didn't have a Q to model today, but you definitely want to get yourself and your girlfriends a Cold Card. So use our code SIMPLY. I'm going to pull that up again, scan the QR code, and let's move on to the news.
Guess what I saw? This is a little bit of, speaking of the news, we are in the news segment, Sophie. I saw this pop up literally minutes ago. A US ambassador to Denmark reports holding $120 million in Bitcoin. This is kind of crazy. We've got a new bull in the White House. I think this is absolutely huge. And it kind of goes back to the point that you mentioned just before we transition, Sophie. You mentioned all these treasury companies are buying Bitcoin. Every day we nearly see a new treasury company. I love this website. This is one of my go-to websites. We can see in the past 30 days that little tiny green number that you guys might not be able to read. It says plus 26. We've seen 26 new, whether it's governments, public companies, or private companies, adopt Bitcoin in the past month. It's nearly one a day, and it's kind of insane. It's growing at a pace that I think nobody kind of predicted we'd see in 2025. And between these massive governments, public companies, and private companies, we can see collectively they hold 3.53 million Bitcoin. I think it's absolutely huge, and it's not slowing down.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of the insidious ways that I think that these big institutions are buying Bitcoin and buying it off of you, people like you and me, is because they're betting that, you know, the average American is still going to want to bet on the S&P. They're still going to want to buy their stocks. And so what are they doing? They're pumping their bags, giving you fiat in exchange for buying more Bitcoin. It's like their own version of the infinite money printer. And so then the cycle continues. And you know, these people are sneaky because I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing, Michael Saylor.
We're watching you guys very closely. Now, speaking of news, I saw this pop out literally 3 minutes ago. So we got an update. It says the US House has finished debate on all 3 crypto bills: the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the anti-CBDC bill with final votes pending. Senator Bill Hagerty has said that this afternoon the House will vote on the Genius Act. So, of course, it's quote-unquote crypto week. We're supposed to be finding out a lot of stuff pertaining to Bitcoin in America this week. It's just a coincidence that we also have that private investigation that we broke down for you guys in the first part of today's show, kind of looking at how much Bitcoin does America really hold. Again, if you guys join late, this is a live show, but you can rewind the show and check it out after the fact. But it looks as if there is a lot of bullish news happening in America today. It looks as if we're now beginning to see support for these pro-Bitcoin legislations and laws that have been voted on right now in America. I think this is super bullish, Soph.
Yeah, this is extremely bullish. And again, even after the news, the report that or investigation that Lola leads saw with this FOIA request, I think that's going to push this administration to be very competitive with countries like China and buy more Bitcoin, especially now that this has been codified or is about to be codified into law. And this is really important for other reasons that, this is solidifying Bitcoin's footprint in the United States. Like, this isn't just something that is being brought out through executive order. This is something that is actually going to take a great amount of effort to undo. And so no matter what administration comes after this, this is something that, if when the country sees the net benefits from it, it's going to be very difficult for Congress to undo this. And so it's a huge step forward. And banning the CBDCs is also a major, major win for anybody who loves freedom. So yeah, I'm super bullish on this too, Luke. You're totally right.
I think I do like the fact that you made there about once it's passed in, it's going to be really difficult to kind of undo that law. So even if, God forbid, the Democrats gain leadership once again in America, if a lot of these pro-Bitcoin laws are passed and kind of becomes entrenched in society, I think it is going to be really tough to reverse your way out of that. And
I encourage the Democrats, like, come be part of the freedom movement. I think Bitcoin can be totally bipartisan. And there are a lot of things about Bitcoin that, kind of cater to the left, like equal access to funds, non-discrimination, things that, they talk about all the time in, their cultural politics. And so I think, they should just join Team Orange. We could all be on the same team. And I know that they all voted against these acts. I can't imagine why. I can, but I don't want to discriminate. I don't want to like push anybody out. I think Bitcoin is for anybody. And so, they could totally join the side of freedom if they wanted to. Just saying.
Please join the freedom movement. Maybe one day, maybe they will. The last piece of news I got for you guys today is I saw this come out a few hours ago. Massive OG Bitcoin whale shifts another $4.7 billion to a new wallet. What I thought was cool here is that this guy has been holding since 2011. So these wallets have been dormant for, is that 14 years? Whoever this is, I know a lot of people are making a little bit of a buzz about this, saying, oh, there's a OG dumping 80,000 Bitcoin. I mean, we don't have confirmation he's dumping the Bitcoin. Yeah, it's moving to and from exchanges. But I mean, the dude's held for 14 years. I mean, if he's got $8 billion worth of Bitcoin, good on him or good on her for holding as much Bitcoin as they do. So again, I saw this a few hours ago. This whale's moved another $4 billion worth of Bitcoin.
That might be kind of a good idea to I've heard of people, asking those questions like, oh, what if I want to have multiple wallets for, whatever reason? Maybe people are afraid to just hold it all in one wallet. So for me, this doesn't really mean much. unless that wallet belongs to like Coinbase or Kraken or an exchange where like it's obvious that they're getting ready to sell, then that would worry me just like maybe a little bit.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's pretty clear. Like the whales right now are actually buying Bitcoin at some of their fastest paces in history. I thought that's really interesting. We don't normally see whales buy as aggressively as they are today, unless it's before a bull run. So this is again the big kicker that I think gets missed by a lot of people. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you know, it's the top. Bitcoin's topped at $120,000." Well, no, I don't think so. Normally, what these whales do is a pretty good indicator of what's to come, and they typically accumulate before the bull run begins. So I think that's a super bullish sign overall there.
Well, you know what they say, timing the market or time in the
Mm,
market beats timing the market. And these whales, if they are whales, have likely bought Bitcoin at like the cheapest price ever. And they're used to this already. They're used to the ebbs and flows of the cycle and they know when to buy. So if these whales, you know, are selling like maybe they're doing like the reverse DCAing. They're like starting to sell off a little bit so that they can get ready for the next cycle. But who's
mm.
to say if there even is going to be a next cycle, right? That's the big question because now that you know something like these bills, the Genius Act, are passing through Congress, and the United States is adopting a pro Bitcoin stance, who's to say what will happen next? Is it the death of cycles? That's the big question this cycle. Like, are we going to see another dump? Or are we just gonna see a slow climb that just goes up forever? Is
I
it
think I think we should talk about that in the culture, Sophie. That's fascinating. I wasn't planning on talking about what will the cycles look like next. Let's do it in a moment after the culture section.
for sure? Okay.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, guys. Wait, we want to show you something special right now for the culture in case you haven't checked Twitter. Luke, do you have that tweet?
Absolutely. I'm sure the people are wondering, why am I stuck with that kid with a terrible haircut once again? Well, of
And the
course,
whammon.
Nico and Opti are literally at the NASDAQ today. Look at them, they're all suited up. Sophie, did you pick that suit out for your man, Nico? I want to know.
I did. I picked out both those suits actually
Ooh.
because these are like my sons. um I take care of them. And so yeah, no, we want to give a big shout out to Hive for being one of our greatest sponsors. Their NASDAQ ticker is Hive. You can scan the QR code to find out more and find out how you can be mining from the comfort of your own home. We're very excited. I think this is a huge day. I know a lot of people are like, oh, like F the institutions, whatever, but like this is what we want. This is hyper Bitcoinization. This is what we've been fighting for. And hey, I will take this future over nobody knowing about Bitcoin and never using it any day.
Yeah, you and me both, Soph. So a couple of things we mentioned. We're talking about cycles. I love talking about Bitcoin cycle theory. I think a lot of people are kind of preparing themselves for the next 6 to 12 months. Because again, if somebody doesn't know what a Bitcoin cycle is, I might pull up a chart that kind of explains this 4-year cyclical nature of Bitcoin. So you can see every 4 years, we have one of those bubble phases, which is highlighted by, let's call that orange. Let's call that a weak orange. That weak orange is showing us that 12-month bull run that we typically see in Bitcoin. But then every 4 years, when we get a little bit overextended and over our skis, we see these big corrections. So Bitcoin's seen a, what's that, an 87% correction back in 2014, an 84% correction 4 years later in 2018, and then 4 years later in 2022, we saw another 77% correction. So now we kind of like asking the question, is this 4-year cycle going to continue? Is this Bitcoin's growth path destined for the next 15 years? I'm not so sure. Sophie, what are your thoughts on this chart and just overall Bitcoin cycle theory? I'd love to pick your brain about it.
You know, what I see is just like basic economics. It's kind of like the law of diminishing returns. When you get early into something like Bitcoin, you're obviously going to see like these huge gains. And as more people start to adopt Bitcoin and like not want to sell it and not want to let it go, and because it is a scarce asset, they're not making more of it. You know, you are gonna, I think it's like only common sense to kind of see these diminishing returns, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to go up and to the right forever, right? You know, if there's some kind of catastrophe or housing crisis or whatever, I do predict that the price of Bitcoin will go up because people will realize that this is, you know, something that isn't gonna ever lose value. It has what was it? What was that speech that Michael Saylor did in Nashville, the Nashville conference, where he talks about entropy? Like this is the only asset that doesn't suffer from that. So I think when people find that out, you know, the value is just going to keep going up, which means that we're also not going to see the dumps that we used to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting rabbit hole. I could literally talk about this for an hour. For me, my kind of base case is that I think maybe there's like a 20 to 30% chance that Bitcoin continues to see what we've seen, and that is like diminishing returns. And that would mean Bitcoin topping at like 150, I think 200,000's kind of like the top off. If we get above 250, 300,000, that would kind of break, quote unquote, the idea of diminishing returns. So again, I don't, nobody knows the future. I think there's maybe like a 20% chance.
Nah, come on. But I think it'll be like maybe to 220, 250. I'm like really hoping for, I'm bullish, bro. Like I think it'll get to like 220, 250, and then maybe we'll come back down to like 120, like where we're at right now. It hurts. It's really funny because as Bitcoin goes up, or it's been pumping this last couple of weeks, every time it goes down just a little bit, I get so sad. I'm just like,
you get to buy more. We get to buy more Bitcoin for cheaper prices.
what?
Stack the bags.
All my money goes into Bitcoin. All of it.
I know. I think the next price swings are going to be pretty crazy. And as we do kind of get into a world where, hey, I mean, if we do see $250,000 Bitcoin, that's going to mean some pretty interesting things for the short sellers of Bitcoin. So we kind of mentioned this a couple of times throughout today's show. There was a massive debate between Jim Chanos and Pierre Rochard earlier in the week. This happened on the Preston's YouTube channel, Preston Pish, longtime Bitcoiner. It was a much anticipated debate because Jim Chanos has been very openly, let's say, bearish on MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. But I do think we saw GROK, I believe this is Twitter's AI, summarize the debate on Twitter. And what I found most interesting, again, GROK's supposed to be somewhat impartial, but you can see here, he summarized it. So he summarized the perspective of Rochard and Chanos, the skeptic. So he says that Chanos, the skeptic's take is that premium to Bitcoin holdings is financial gibberish, no real value add. Leverage adds risk, and he is shorting MicroStrategy while long Bitcoin. So again, I thought that was pretty funny that GROK is summarizing Jim Chanos's position as financial gibberish. And that was actually my takeaway as well from that debate. I do think that anybody shorting MicroStrategy is just kind of asking for trouble. I think
I
shorting.
think they hate money. I think they hate wealth, and they're trying to just, throw it all away.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think these guys, I think they're just trying to be too cute. They're trying to be too clever. And I think Preston asked the question at some stage, like, hey, why don't you just buy Bitcoin? Why don't you just stop being so cute with the trade and just kind of buy Bitcoin and just chill?
Because that would break their brains, Luke. That would like the cognitive dissonance would put them in psychosis, and then all the drugs that they are taking will just like implode. And it's too much for some people. Honestly, like this concept and like understanding reality is way too much for some people, and they would rather hate themselves and not do what's best for them and their family than accept that maybe they were lied to. And it's okay because we were all lied to. Like, they're not special.
Yo,
Oh my
we're
God!
crashing the party right now.
Whoa!
Oh my God! Wait.
Live from the NASDAQ in the heart of New York City. I don't know.
Caught us at lunch.
Somehow me and Opti made it here. Look at that. That's crazy.
Who let you guys in the building?
Security did.
Shout out to Hive for hosting us and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Shout out to Luke
and
for hosting the show, and then Sophie coming in strong from the hotel. But yeah,
guys, I'm nervous.
Wanted to phone in.
Wait, let's zoom up. Look, guys, for everyone in the chat, we're suit coiners.
We're
now.
suit coiners. Right? That's crazy, right?
No, and the glasses, just y'all look so classy.
Yeah, but big milestone for
banker.
Simply. We're calling in from the NASDAQ, the heart of New York City, right next to Times Square. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. We got some good content for you guys on the terrace, the roof of NASDAQ. Great background.
Yeah.
Suit wearing MAGA boys, lol.
Anyways, wanted to drop in, not crash your guys' party, but love you guys. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Shout out to Luke, the best Bitcoin YouTuber in the game.
Yeah, the most bullish Bitcoin content creator in the game.
Then, of course, shout out to my beautiful wife, Sophie, for holding it down today. Opti and I will be back tomorrow. I don't know should we just do the show in the suits?
No.
Yes. Yes, I'm pushing for the suits.
Oh my God. All right. I'll see you guys later. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye. Yeah. All right, guys. So, I mean, should we wrap it up there, Luke?
Beautiful place to end things, I think.
Guys, if you haven't already, smash the like button, share the show with your friends, tell everybody about it. And thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Simply Bitcoin. Logging out. Bye.
Adios.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com. Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.